So welcome everyone to Breslov Coaching and Healing with Moshe. Hi, Rivka. And this is a video series in which we take a look at psychospiritual topics informed by the teachings of Rebbe Nachman of Breslov. And these topics we explore are designed to help you on your emotional and spiritual journey. And last week, because it is the month of Elul, in which we prepare for Rosh Hashanah, we focused on the quintessential lesson of Rebbe Nachman's for the month of Elul, Torah, lesson 6 in Likutey, Moharan. And the lesson focuses in large part on honor and humility, and how to rectify the attribute of honor and the desire for honor in our lives, and how to give honor to Hashem. And you can watch that lesson for yourself. I'll link to it. And this week, we're going to talk about a topic that actually is related. That topic is anger. And Rebbe Nachman explains that an angry person covets honor, and that it's a very clear link between them. He says there's a clear link between them. And therefore, this is another attribute that we can work on during the month of Elul. We can work on rectifying our anger, more than rectifying, eliminating it if possible. And it's something we all have to work towards in our lives. Now, Moshe decided to talk about a really interesting topic related to anger, and that is Rebbe Nachman's teaching that anger destroys wealth.
Yes, and anger really does destroy your wealth. Before we discuss anger and wealth, we need to learn more about anger. So what is anger? You'd be surprised to know that it's not just screaming and yelling, which is a symptom of anger.
It's a symptom. It's also a way in which we communicate that we're angry as well. Exactly.
And so anger is really any time a person faces a situation and the person feels provoked, even mildly provoked, you're experiencing then some form of anger. Some examples of these forms of anger are feelings of jealousy and envy. This is where you want what they have, and you don't want them to have what they have.
So jealousy and envy, I mean, there couldn't be something more basic to being forbidden by the Torah,
right? Because
it's in the 10 Commandments. Do not covet. So we really shouldn't want anything that someone else has, and we should be happy that they have it. That for some people is really a big challenge, because a lot of people feel that, and it really is a lot of people, I think it's common that people feel that people have something and they don't deserve it. And that's not for us to say, that's for Hashem to say.
Absolutely. The next form of anger would be resentment. And resentment is believing that the person deserves to be hated forever or for a little bit of time, whatever you feel is necessary time for that person to be hated. But that's another concern that we have to be mindful of.
And resentment also is also forbidden by Torah.
Right.
So resentment, holding a grudge in your heart, that's called hating someone in your heart. And not only is it forbidden by Torah, but we say a prayer every single night before we go to sleep, the Shema, the bedtime Shema. And in this whole prayer, we begin with prayer asking Hashem to not punish anyone else on our account. So if somebody's done something wrong with us, we don't say, Hashem, please punish them. We say the opposite. We say, Hashem, I forgive them. Please don't punish that person because of me. And I think that this is something we can all work on, because we ourselves don't want to, God forbid, be punished for hurting someone else. We want to be able to forgive each other, and especially this time of year, I think.
Yes. The next example would be righteous indignation. And that's where you believe that your resentment is obviously justifiable. and that person who betrayed you or hurt you, so you have the right to really hate them because they betrayed or hurt you. So it's really more of an extension of what we just mentioned above in terms of resentment. It's much more deeper than that. So, and another example of that would be of anger. Anger feelings would be also feeling self-righteous and feeling morally or intellectually superior, so that everyone else's faults are really like causing you to be angry. Right.
So resentment. So righteous indignation is feeling that your resentment is justified.
Correct.
And then feeling self-righteous, you say, is you feel that you have a right to be angry because it's the other person's fault.
Correct.
Okay. So actually, how many times in your life have you ever said, or at least said to yourself, it's your fault I'm angry. You made me angry. I think we've all done this, maybe even today.
Everybody has been there.
Okay.
Okay. So the next example would be seeking revenge, or sometimes people will entertain these revenge fantasies because they have such a strong desire to get the person back and to punish them, that they have these revenge fantasies where they, put themselves through how they're actually going to carry out getting that person back,
or how someone else is going to carry
or
it.
how someone else. Yeah, exactly. So, and then that kind of fuels that anger to go forward even more and to be more productive at that time.
Rebbe Nachman actually speaks about this as well. He says that people lie in bed at night and spin fantasies in their heads about other people, and it begins with thinking that someone has harmed you, or thinking that somebody wants to harm you, or going over a conversation you've had or an event that happened and reading in very nefarious motives to someone's actions. And the truth is most times where you've been hurt, betrayed even, or something like this, it's not because the other person actively wants to hurt you. It's because the other person is thinking about themselves first and they're not paying attention. And we've all been on both sides of this. We've all accidentally hurt others, and people have accidentally hurt us. And these fantasies they're very, very unhealthy. They're not what we should be thinking about, especially as Rebbe Nachman says, lying in bed at night. That's not what we should be thinking about. That certainly isn't going to bring sweet dreams.
Exactly. So yes, and another form of anger would be self-pity, and that's where we feel sorry for the poor misfortunate suffering of ourselves, and so we're actually it's a form of anger where we're blaming others, and then we're blaming Hashem.
Right, and that also, I mean, that's also toxic, because self-pity is it stunts one's growth, because without the emunah and bitachon, the faith and trust that Hashem is determining all the various aspects of our lives, even and especially the difficult ones, and believing that Hashem is doing them in some way to help us grow. Somehow this difficult situation is going to be a benefit if we're mired in self-pity. And this is something that you and I have talked about with various clients. Like, if somebody's suffering, we want to comfort them. We understand why somebody feels self-pity, but how do we help them get out of it at the same time and understand that the painful situation that they're going through, while we want to validate that, is a situation where if they just become stuck in self-pity, they won't grow from it, they won't learn from it, and they won't benefit from it.
Exactly. Sometimes the pain and the suffering they go through will help them reach higher levels in their relationship with Hashem if they allow it to happen. Mm-hmm. Another example of anger would be blaming and being angry with yourself. You could be blaming others and being angry with yourself. That's
blaming yourself, you mean?
Exactly. Blaming yourself, being angry with yourself. And that can be also very harmful for your soul. And
how does that play out when somebody's angry with themselves? What are they like? How does that express?
It could be, it's different for each person, but generally people can feel depressed because they're angry with themselves. They could act out with various behaviors that, are not so friendly behaviors toward others and themselves. And so we want to really,
Any specifics?
Specifics would be like, for instance, they would maybe try to harm themselves in some way by punishing themselves in some way or punishing others. So we really feel that it's important for them to understand how that works and how they can prevent it from happening.
Okay.
Yeah. So another example of anger would be sarcasm and mockery, or litzanis, and that's totally forbidden by the Torah. So we really want people to understand that it's something they need to work on.
Right. So sarcasm and mockery, it's really important that you put this on the list. And the reason is because litzanis is something that's very common, and comedians often cross the line, and there are a ton of Jewish comedians.
Right.
And mocking someone because of their quirks or their, God forbid, their disabilities, God forbid, or anything like this, or because they belong to a certain community, it's totally forbidden. Being sarcastic is also forbidden. A Jew should be simple with Hashem. Rebbe Nachman emphasizes this. He emphasizes this in the famous story, which I always mention, the sophisticate and the simpleton, how being straight with Hashem, straight with oneself, and straight with other people is really the goal. And all the veils that we put in between ourselves and Hashem, and between ourselves and other people, and between ourselves and ourselves, in order to sound sophisticated, in order to sound, I don't know, of having a certain status or prestige, in order to be funny, all these things were they're blockages to healing your souls.
Exactly. And the Rebbe Nachman wants us to be aware of our anger. So it's important to understand how anger escalates. And so you want to be, so you can be able to work on it before it gets out of control. So when you feel annoyed, nip your anger in the bud. Don't let it progress.
Right. And this is something that you teach. You've taught this in anger management groups and classes and one-on-one. The steps to how to become, we're not going to do any of that today, but the steps to how to become aware of when you're beginning to feel angry, how to develop an awareness of this and how to stop it. And I think that those steps, maybe we'll talk about them another time.
Yes. Okay. Now let's talk about the relation between anger and your money. Rebbe Nachman teaches something very interesting, that anger damages your wealth. The Yetzer Hara, or our evil inclination, makes a person choose to have angry feelings. Rebbe Nachman teaches us something, though, very fascinating, though. At the moment that you're at the precipice of anger, heaven is about to bless you with a sum of money. So the evil inclination, which is his job, he wants to ruin this gift and he wants to ruin this bounty. So he provokes you to anger. So how does he provoke you to anger? It may not even be something that you're aware of. You could be in any situation. You could be in a work situation, a family situation, a community situation. You could even be in your car. And somehow something happens that provokes you to get angry. And if you choose to get angry at that time, you lose the money. But you must remember that in the moment, that being angry, it's a choice. It's up to you. Only you. Even if you feel triggered, you spoil the blessing of wealth that was meant for you by Hashem.
So you use the word triggered, which is a word that triggers me because I find this term, I hear it used. A couple of people I know use this term very frequently. And I feel, in my experience, that this term triggered is a way of saying something triggered me, something from the outside pushed my buttons, it flipped a switch, and therefore I am not prepared to, or I'm not able to, or I don't have any responsibility for controlling my own feelings and emotions. I don't have to regulate my emotions. I don't have to manage them. And now I do think that the term triggered is reasonable when we're talking about the way it was originally designed to be used, which was for people who have had a serious trauma and they experience situations which provoke an unbearable response in them, and that sometimes as they heal, they need to avoid these situations. And I don't know what you think. I think that's valid.
It's valid.
And yet triggered has become just this word that everybody uses. And to me, again, this is really politically incorrect, but to me, it's a term of entitlement. It's like, you triggered me, therefore, however I'm responding is your fault.
Right. That's what people think. But it really is a way of, just like you say, disavowing responsibility for those feelings of anger that the person might have. But it's really interesting to know that that's when the person should say, I have to take responsibility for these feelings. These are my own feelings. These feelings are uniquely mine. Therefore, I have to take responsibility for them and try to work them through.
Right. Nobody wants to be the kind of person that everybody else has to walk on eggshells with. And today, we're in such a state in this world that I'm sure this is pushing I'm sure this is triggering some of you out there. I'm sorry, but we're in such a situation in the world today where people hear something that's uncomfortable for them, or that challenges them. Not that's mean. Mean is different, but something that might be helpful that's uncomfortable or challenges them. They feel triggered and they overreact, or they react very strongly. And we have to all work on this. We all have, everybody, including me, we all have to work on this, right?
Exactly right. And Rebbe Nachman also tells us that when we have this anger, it blemishes our holy soul. So what does that mean when Rebbe Nachman says it blemishes your holy soul? It means that anger is a form of avodah. It's a form of idol worship. And it's a way of disconnecting from Hashem and denying, divine providence, which is a way. It's a way to deny that Hashem is sending you learning opportunities and growth experiences that He wants you to take a look at.
Right. So that's pursuant to this idea of being triggered. I see what you're saying. Is that it being triggered, this disavowal of personal responsibility, and just giving into anger is a way to say that whatever I'm hearing, whatever I'm going through, whatever I'm doing, it is not from Hashem. It's not a learning opportunity. It's not a growth experience. Now, of course, there may be situations where people are abusive and so on, but we're not speaking about that.
Correct.
And I think that, what is idol worship? Well, really, idol worship is in which we hold anything else as a cause instead of Hashem, or we look to something else as an intermediary. And in this case, when you say that anger blemishes our neshama, our soul, and it's a way of disconnecting from Hashem. It's a way of saying, I'm not getting my way, and therefore I'm not getting my way, and therefore Hashem isn't pleasing me, as if it's up to Hashem to do what we want, I think.
Right. And anger also damages our ability to achieve anything, not just wealth, but also achieving, in the area of spirituality, like, for instance, doing mitzvahs. It makes it difficult to actualize any potential.
Okay. So I think with that, we can go back to what we said last week and what we said at the beginning, or what I said in the beginning of this video, which is this idea that Rebbe Nachman brings forth. It's in the Aleph Facebook for anybody who's interested, that a person who's angry, an angry person is really focused on their own kavod, their own honor. And that's the block that makes it difficult to achieve anything, especially in the area of spirituality, but also even in wealth, because we need humility in order to receive Hashem's blessings. We need to get out of Hashem's way, and we need to not seek to honor ourselves and to puff ourselves up. We need to share the, we need to be able to share the glory, or not share the glory. We need to be able to put Hashem's glory and honor first and share the glory and honor of Hashem in this world.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And I think also that this idea of humility and wealth is another one that Rebbe Nachman touches on in places. Maybe that's going off on a tangent. We can talk about it next time.
Yes.
So we want to share with you just a few of the incredible benefits that Rebbe Nachman says comes from breaking your anger. And of course, there are so many other benefits, like health benefits and so on. But before we do, let's just revisit the whole point of this conversation, which is to help you become aware of your anger. What does it feel like? What does it look like? And to understand the real spiritual and material costs to your anger. And also, we are, really focused on helping you and us and everyone prevent anger. So Moshe came up with a list of, about 8-9 things that can help prevent anger. And they all come from Rebbe Nachman's teachings, and they can help you not only prevent anger, but if you get angry, they can help you stop anger once it occurs, and they can help you with anger globally, meaning you can work on the attribute of anger and getting rid of it over time, not just in the instant. So the first thing, of course, it's not going to be any surprise,
No
is
surprises there.
Hitbodedut or Hitbodedut, which is talking to Hashem in your own words about whatever is on your mind and in your heart. We do this daily, ideally for an hour a day, but if you can only do a few minutes, or if you're just beginning, it's better than nothing. For sure, a little bit is also good, says Rebbe Nachman. And in Hitbodedut, we are primarily concerned with our spirituality, and our emotions are an indelible part of our spirituality, which is why years ago I coined the phrase psychospirituality or psychospiritual, because our psychology and our spirituality are not, we can't separate them, at least not in this world. And so Hitbodedut is a time to talk to Hashem about what we need to work on. And no better subject than working on our anger, since this is something that everybody has at some point in their life. For some people, it's a bigger problem, for some lesser problem. And we can talk to Hashem and ask him, Hashem, I really want to improve in this area. Please help me improve in this area. Let me be able to control my anger. Let me remember everything comes from you, and so on.
Yeah, and the next remedy is to overpower and guard your anger impulse and act patiently each and every moment. Patience is a form of emunah, right? So hold back on expressing your anger, even when you're hearing a criticism. Give yourself permission to hear and to experience the criticism, even if it's an insult, even if it feels insulting. Allow yourself the opportunity to experience it.
Recognize, I think that it's from Hashem. And when I'll just go to the next remedy on your list, which is to have emunah and bitachon, to have faith and trust in Hashem, who sent you this test. I think for so many people, a lot of anger comes from feeling criticized, and Hashem is hiding in the situation. He's hiding whatever the situation is, he's in there. There's a lesson for you. There's a message for you. Hashem's love is in there. And what Moshe said about giving yourself permission to hear, to really hear and experience what someone's saying. I think, look, I think that that we can recognize that everybody's an agent of Hashem, and that whatever we're hearing or experiencing is from Hashem. And that in and of itself, just remembering that is like a pause and will help you take a deep breath and let the anger dissipate.
Right, because no one really wants an uninvited insult. They want to, give themselves permission to.
Nobody wants an invited insult.
Nobody wants an invited insult,
but uninvited criticism, maybe.
Yeah. But so it's a very good way to, like you said, to work through it. The next remedy is to accept everything that happens is divinely orchestrated for the greater good. Everything that happens in our lives, whether we understand them or not, is hard to put together and hard to know when it happens. Sometimes we have to wait. Sometimes we have to reflect back on the past, but it's an important thing that we accept everything that comes from Hashem. It's divinely orchestrated. It's going to help us grow. It's going to help us become better Jews, and so on and so forth.
Right, and that it's, that you say the greater good. It's for our personal good, and it can be difficult because things are hard. And how could this be for our benefit? But when we develop Amunah and Bitachon, faith and trust in God, it becomes like a reflexive action that even if it's hard and uncomfortable, God forbid, painful, we don't want anybody to have to suffer, that ultimately there must be some benefit from it. This is something Rebbe Nachman teaches, and pursuant to that again is this idea of how we listen to what's going on and how we see what's going on. And so the next remedy on your list is to listen to the message, not necessarily the tone of the message, but listen to what the message is saying, or take a close look at that experience, examine it. Is there something that you can get out of it? Is there some hashgacha process, some divine providence in it? Somebody's telling you something that maybe you don't want to hear. Is there some truth in it? Perhaps there's some truth in it. Our initial reflexive action when we hear something we don't like from somebody is that can't be true. But maybe it is true, or maybe part of it is true, or maybe there's a message in there that you can take with you and I think about. Exactly.
Sometimes you have to pause and reflect, like you said. It's very important to do that. Very important. The next remedy is the holy act of Shabbos eating. Shabbos, Rebbe Nachman says Shabbos is in truth are the same thing. And when a person eats for the holiness of Shabbos, they say, La covets Shabbos kodesh la Hashem. They say that I'm eating this for this holy Shabbos. That in itself, that kind of truth leads to the downfall of anger.
And Rebbe Nachman actually speaks about in the Aleph Facebook about anger and eating in general. And he says at one point, he says that sometimes, he says that sometimes an angry person needs to eat, which just seems so obvious, but it's true. But here with Shabbos, I think that when we're eating really at this high level on Shabbos, we're not eating like the way we do the rest of the week. We're eating with, kedusha, with holiness. We're experiencing a whole other level. Our neshamas go up, and you can't go up if you are angry. And they're just mutually exclusive. So yeah, that Shabbos eating, I think you're right, heals, or Rebbe Nachman's right. It heals that anger. Also, Rebbe Nachman says something so important. It's a beautiful lesson, which maybe we'll get to another time, which is to break the impulse of anger. Break your anger by sweetening it with mercy and compassion. Our instinct is very often, sadly, to be cruel. And Rebbe Nachman says, don't be cruel, be sweet. If you are angry with another person, reframe the experience, find and seek out, find and look for the good point in you, which is that point that really is loving and peaceful, and that is capable of great mercy and compassion, which you are. Also, to look for that good point in the other person and give them the benefit of the doubt and say, they're really a good person. They're having an off moment, or maybe I misheard them, or maybe they made a mistake. Whatever you need to do to immediately treat that other person with mercy and compassion. And then the situation, like whatever the situation, look for the good in the situation. Sometimes it can even make you laugh. And remember that whatever's going on, again, is being orchestrated by Hashem.
The next remedy is that the Torah really deepens. Learning Torah deepens your understanding. So the Rebbe says that anger happens because of a lack of das. So the more that one learns, then the anger is going to disappear and be replaced with compassion, with kindness, peace. And that comes through learning and understanding.
Right. And the learning and understanding, the learning Torah, since this is the last remedy on this list, the learning Torah has to go back to and refer back to the beginning of this list, in my opinion, which is Hitbodedut, is that Rebbe Nachman says, whatever you learn, talk about it with Hashem. Learn one of Rebbe Nachman's lessons, you read one of his stories, you read something by Rebbe Nachman, talk about it with Hashem. Ask Hashem, how do I help actualize this in my life? How do I make this lesson of this story, or whatever the message is here, how do I make it part of me? And that is what gives you that das, that holy awareness and understanding and intelligence. It's really a kind of intelligence. And when you have that, you can't be angry. I mean, okay, we have our moments. I have my moments. I have a fiery temper, but it's hard to be angry when you have that experience of connecting with Hashem's Torah, especially the Torah of Rebbe Nachman, and
become more spiritually intelligent.
Yeah. More aware. So now there are a lot of benefits. We're done with that list, or I want to squeeze this in because I'm getting tired. There are a lot of benefits of breaking one's anger, and as I mentioned before, a lot of these are physical benefits, real serious health benefits. As a matter of fact, I was just reading an article when you brought this up last week about possibly doing this topic. I happened to be reading an article on anger in the heart and how anger damages the heart. And we know it damages the immune system. This is proven. You can visit Dr. Google and they'll tell you. Rebbe Nachman tells us, so we don't need Dr. Google, because he tells us that joy is the cure for everything. And anger certainly is one of the opposites of joy, as is depression. So, but there are some benefits that Rebbe Nachman tells us. Moshe found 4 of them. There might be more. So why don't you go over the benefits of breaking your anger?
Sure. One of the benefits of breaking anger is really that you're going to merit great wealth and a very good livelihood. That's really one of the biggest ones, as well as being worthy of rich blessings and soul growth. These are another benefit of
Right.
breaking one's anger.
When you break your anger, when you're angry, your soul gets stuck in the wrong gear. It gets stuck in the angry gear, if you've ever seen the stick shift. And that's going, it's really stuck there and it can't get out of gear. And when you're not angry, you just go through. I don't know how to drive a stick shift, but I've seen it done, and I tried once. That was not a good experience. And you can get out of gear, and your soul can grow and go fast.
Exactly, and that anger also, when you're able to break your anger, you're able to attain true, honest prayer. You could daven better, you can pray better, which is very good, because then you could reach the heights that you want to go to in your spirituality. And the last benefit of breaking one's anger is that you'll direct yourself to Hashem alone. You won't need to rely on others so much for solutions.
Mhm.
You go right to Hashem. So,
And that, after all, is so important. This idea of really putting our faith, hope, and trust only in Hashem, understanding that we have to do our hishtadlus, what you call action steps, and understanding that we have to have relationships with people, loving relationships, and so on, and all kinds of relationships, but at the same time only really relying on Hashem. So I think we've covered pretty much what we wanted to cover.
some good ground.
And
Yes.
there's plenty more, hopefully, God willing, to come. And in the meantime, if you benefited from this video, could you please subscribe to this channel? And could you please share this video if you think you know someone who might benefit from it? And also, if you would like this video down below, that would be great. Now, we have a lot of feedback. Most of it has been through email. We have some through the comments below, but we do have a list of your requests of topics that you would like us to cover. We haven't, obviously, we've just scratched the surface. We haven't been doing this that long. And we hope that, that God willing, in the future, will address more of the topics that you are interested in. In the meantime, we wish you a really good week, and we thank you so much for joining us and watching these videos. Okay, bye everyone.